Hello and welcome to an episode of Altcoin Thursday. I'm here with the Duck. As always, the show is brought to you by Woo. Links available in the description below. Don, BTC is sub 60k and altcoins are thriving. What do you make of this?
Uh, oh, it's a cursed question, bro. I don't, I don't necessarily want to say anything to that. Like that's the worst way to start off a show.
Thanks.
but but yeah, I mean, technically not the best sign, right? Like this when people jump into risk right after a breakdown. It's not necessarily the best, but it doesn't have to be bad because I mean, it's just basically a bunch of people speculating that. Bitcoin's gonna kind of catch itself, and I mean, it's not too unrealistic given the trend, at least this time around, like how strong it's been and where we are price wise. But it is a little bit concerning, right? Like when people jump into the shitters immediately after basically bearish trends have formed or have confirmed. It's like it's not great, but I'm just gonna ignore it. I'm just gonna close my eyes and pretend it's
Compelling.
not happening.
Because generally the expectation is, if BTC breaks down or is bearish, altcoins sort of break down more and show more weakness. We're not seeing that at the moment.
No.
And there's a range of arguments on Twitter as to why this is the case, ranging from the very bullish ones, which is to say that altcoins were dumping a lot before BTC is broken down, and so there are no sort of urgent sellers left in alts, and that's
Oh,
part
that's
of the
bullshit.
well, that's one argument being made. And the
Yeah.
other argument on the extreme bearish side is this is just like pure complacency, Pavlovian response to altcoins going down and not giving, not sort of taking into account the BTC context. And it's just going to, there's like a short term divergence that falls in line with BTC continuation and altcoin, even larger rug pull. Between those two extremes, where do you fall, and why do you think the first argument is nonsensical?
I mean, so I think generally this is basically high stakes betting on Bitcoin going up again. So I would say it's just a bunch of people gambling on the fact that, oh, Bitcoin went down, maybe it's over going down now. So let me just take some risk in altcoins. So I would say the wait, what is former or latter? Which is which?
Former is the one if you say it earlier slash first, then latter is the
I
second
mean,
one.
that makes sense. Yeah, then it's the latter, I think, of your two.
Right.
And
Why can't you pick a
the
nice middle ground for once, Don? This would be a great time for your radical centrism to come through and give us some hope, but of course you
no,
veer to the right.
no. I mean, I think if they're right, right. I think this is a massive gamble, basically, and I think if they're right, they're gonna like that gamble is gonna pay off quite nicely. But it is like a bunch of people putting on risk at a point where the market isn't really looking that good. So that can go quite bad quite fast. So I mean, there's a little bit of centrism right there. So maybe like if Bitcoin can turn around, maybe it's actually not going to be the end of the world for these people. I think it's just basically like a high risk bet. I don't think you necessarily have to take it because if Bitcoin turns around and goes up like 10-15%, I think the altcoins are not going to run away too far and still be good trades, right? But yeah, people just like to play risky, especially when they've been bored out of their mind, and this range has been fucking boring. So fair play to them.
That's true. Do you really think a lot of this can be explained by essentially being a BTC proxy bet, though, which is to say that they think BTC is going to go up, so they buy altcoins? I think a lot of this altcoin trading is BTC agnostic, which is what we tend to see when you have a large period of altcoin outperformance. People kind of just don't care, and they don't even have BTC on their watch list. They just see their altcoins hit support levels and think, well, this must be a good area to do business. Do you still think it's the old school style of, this is essentially a bet on BTC via
Yeah.
alts?
I mean, I think the people, I think the people that ignore Bitcoin don't really have the money to push this market around, and the people that do, right, like the bigger funds and the higher net worth individuals in this market, I think they do look at Bitcoin. So I generally think we're not like this retail focused right now, where this is just like, oh yeah, the altcoins are. At support, let me buy it. If anything, and I mean, like I can somewhat subscribe to this. I would say like, okay, these coins seem relatively cheap. I can make that argument, like from a fund perspective, you're like, oh, Solana at like 125 or whatever it was, that is relatively cheap. But I don't know. I think it's generally like it's generally more of a Bitcoin bet, like a leveraged Bitcoin bet, with a little bit more info, because you have the Bitcoin charts as well. So you have like a little bit of insight whether the coin is actually outperforming or not, if there's a little bit of underlying strength there. But I think it is mostly Bitcoin play, just on the altcoin front.
Do you think if BTC has another leg lower, we'll see a more, I guess, standard relationship where alts shit the bed?
I mean, on that leg low, yeah. It's just, I think altcoins, and I mean, I'm not necessarily saying about the flavor, like the flavor of the month coins, right, that have been going up like 10,000%. Generally, altcoins have almost fully retraced all their gains, right, all their bull market gains. Like you go to like the shittier part of the altcoins, the ones that have not been talked about much this cycle, and you'll see them at like almost all the way back to the lows. And I think if Bitcoin has another move lower, those are going to be somewhat interesting, just because that seems like, even to like just someone that hates altcoins like me, for example, that seems like a very, very cheap buy in comparison to where the market is at, right? So if you get to buy Dogecoin at cycle lows, or almost like reasonably close, while Bitcoin is trading at like 50K, that seems like a really good bet, just generally. And I think that is where a few like quote unquote value investors, value traders are going to come in and be like, okay, this is just getting ridiculous at this point. So yeah, I think if Bitcoin goes down, I think a lot of altcoins would go down with it. Especially now where we've seen like these like 10% moves, like Pip is up 10% on the day. I've been chilling it. Still don't have a position. It's great.
You've got a clout position.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the most important
True.
part anyway. And you can see that there's risk taking there, right? So like if that risk taking is on the wrong side of the market, I think that's gonna get wiped out. I'm not necessarily as bearish as other people. Like I was super bearish on Bitcoin for the longest time, like in this previous range. Like we made fun of it in all the shows we have, like how much I thought the range low. Right now that we've broken it, I'm much less bearish on that. Just because I think a good chunk of the impulse is at least done, right? So the risk is lower than it was before. But it's still not out of the woods yet. So I don't know. We'll see how Bitcoin goes, and that's gonna decide the direction on a lot of these altcoins. But you can right now already see where people are taking risk, right? So if it dumps again, those coins are probably gonna do best, and that's like Pepe. That's like a few others. People just jump into the biggest shit immediately, still, which is quite funny.
Yeah, well, it's been working, right?
Yeah.
The whole rotator meme in the last few months hasn't been particularly well rewarded. We noted in one of the previous episodes the huge amount of sort of dispersion in returns in alts generally, where you have people on completely different planets as far as their portfolios go. You know, someone buying boomer coins is like, well, we got to be early, right? Because I've barely made any money. And then someone who's taken the new coins for a ride or for a large trend probably feels like, oh my god, this has been the most exhausting, 6 to 12 months of my life type of thing. And that's where you get a lot of disagreement about where the market's at, because historically, when we're dealing with like alt season or even just like bull markets, the median returns of anything on any centralized exchange is just like high as fuck. And yeah, you get outperformance, but like everything goes up. Whereas now, a lot of this shit, especially after the altcoin breakdown, kind of just wiped out any gains you had if that's what you were holding. And I think that's just responsible for a lot of people talking across each other when it comes to altcoins and sentiment and returns and where we are cyclically, etc. Because you don't have that benefit of, okay, you're right about the market, whatever that means, being bullish, therefore you make money, or you're wrong and you lose money. It's not only that, there's an added prerequisite that you pick the right coins, because not picking the right coins has been very expensive over the last, 6 to 10 months type of thing, which is unusual as well. And I guess it just means the market's becoming more efficient, more mature. I don't know if you agree with that, but if you look at some of the stuff, yeah, I don't know. Well, it's difficult, right? Because you'd think in general that if a market has more dispersion in returns, that sort of fundamentals matter, or at least you got to be more selective with what you choose. You can't throw your dart at a dartboard of every single listed asset and make money. You got to be more selective. So that kind of favors the more efficient, mature market. But then when you look at the stuff that's outperforming, it becomes more difficult to sort of hold that view, because the fundamentals that are being rewarded are slightly different, to be generous, to what we're used to, for better or for worse.
Yeah, I mean, the fundamentals that are rewarded is this coin a meme? If yes, good. If no, bad. It's ridiculous. It's gotten to a point where it's just like I cannot call it anything but like completely ridiculous. Like you see Pepe do well, you see like a bunch of memes do well, you see the rest of the market take a shit. It's really hard to say that that's sophisticated. But it is like I don't really think there's much retail still. Like, and I don't think like it's basically crypto natives trying to like guess which meme is gonna catch on and where they can kind of cash out. Because right now everyone's kind of on this ride where they're like, I only want 10x's or 100x's. I don't want to have like a 2x or 3x. So a lot of the normal coins kind of don't even like they're not even being considered as a buy. It's just like, can this coin go up 100x? If yes, I'm gonna buy it. If no, no. And I really don't know when that is gonna end. I mean, it will end eventually, but this could be at the end of the cycle, right? Could go into like it will end when the next bear market hits. So maybe this is just the cycle of people just buying like a bunch of memes and getting rugged on 50% of them, but making money on the rest. I don't know, but that's not my game, right? Like that's
Right.
not where you're gonna see me, just because I'm way too lazy to do any kind of trend chopping. Like, no, thank you.
Yeah, it
Which
almost feels like, from a trading point of view, that those cyclical assumptions should be your assumptions until proven otherwise. Because we've seen so many efforts to rotate to, okay, well, now that the memes have slowed down, it's time for the layer twos, for example, right? Or like, oh,
yeah,
value will flow back into blue chip, DeFi, sophisticated assets, etc. And it
yeah,
just simply hasn't been the case. And it's been a very expensive mistake to make, to think that meme coin season would be short lived, and that the n period remaining of the cycle is going to be for serious big boys, which just means old VC coins exit liquidity, essentially. But that's
yeah.
been, again, a very expensive assumption to have. So I think until even just on this bounce, right? It's nice because you get a snapshot of the market. Like, where are the bids when stuff goes down? There are liquidations, gets discounted, and the rules haven't really changed. Like
I
ETH
mean,
BTC didn't really moon.
yeah,
You don't see blue chip DeFi layer two shit outperforming. It's kind of the same stuff we're used to from weeks previous. No.
yeah. I mean, Pepe is almost pushing new highs. Like Bitcoin is very far away from its highs.
That's kind of what we need to know, right?
Yeah, and that is, I mean, that is a little bit scary, right? Whenever you have like Bitcoin start showing weakness, we've had this in previous cycles before, and in previous cycles, this was the markings of the end, right? When the meme coins basically went up while Bitcoin was showing weakness, while Bitcoin broke down from range, that was the end of the entire cycle. And then you had a bunch of runs on the altcoins, and that was it. I'm hoping that this is not the case for this cycle, but it's a little bit scary when that's basically the entire meta, where it's like Bitcoin is trading poorly-ish, at least not as strong as it was before, and then you have the next best performer, or like the best performers generally in the market, is all just like 15 different versions of a dog or a cat.
Fine. So contextually speaking, the bearish argument would be BTC breakdown could be trend forming, and altcoins performing to this extent, and the specific altcoins that are bouncing, could be a sign of, I guess, taking risk too early and or complacency, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And then the argument for strength is that there are enough market participants willing to bid the stuff that has been strong and step in front of this breakout that hasn't really had a lot of follow through yet in one form or
yeah.
another. And they're
I
just
think
being
just
early to the reclaim to come, essentially.
I mean, just generally, the fact that we're still at 60K on Bitcoin
Yeah.
is like the best argument for Like,
That's true.
okay, we're not really fucked yet because it's just quite high still.
Yeah.
So
This sell-off, I mean, it looks scary or whatever, like, oh, range
it's
breakdown,
not that
etc.
big, right?
It's
Yeah.
really not that big, and also the way that it's been sold has been very orderly. Actually, it's been very, for what it is, it's been quite organized, and no huge one-sided liquidations. Open interest didn't get like super wiped out. Quarterly futures didn't go into backwardation. You know, there wasn't a huge period of perps getting crushed, leading to like really negative funding just from those liquidations, forcing the perp way below the index. All the kind of blow up metrics that we're used to looking at for BTC breakdowns, they kind of haven't been triggered at all. If you
Yeah.
want, if you want to use that as on an optimistic note, then you say that okay, well then the breakdown can't really be that scary, and if there are buyers willing to step in front of this thing, then maybe we don't get that type of liquidation. Of course, the other argument could also be true that well, that's because it hasn't happened yet. Stay tuned,
Yeah.
TM. The specific altcoins that I've got on this watch list and that we've discussed as well. We can do Bonk and Pepe first because they're the best returning ones. We can actually start with Pepe. Um, we talked about this on one of the shows, right? As a potential failed breakdown type of thing.
We did, yeah.
Must have, right? So
Which one do you do first, Pepe or Bonk?
whichever one you want. Do you do Bonk
Uh,
first?
we can do Bonk first, yeah.
Let's do Bonk first. So this was, yeah, I remember now. We were going through a watch list of essentially kind of failed breakdown type of coins.
Yep.
Which gives us one clout token, but then we lose that clout token because we also made the argument that if BTC breaks down, probably don't want to be buying these reclaim levels because they're too close to the market. So we're break even on clout tokens, Don. How do you feel about that?
It's a little bit of a shame because like we were even talking about the specific support level that actually held.
I
Like
know.
215 is what we said needs to hold, and
Yeah.
that got tested nicely as the range low and then moved up. We're just washed, my friend.
Just washed.
Too washed to trade Bonk to perfection, even though we had the perfect levels and the perfect kind of chart.
Even the fucking perfect levels aren't enough to make money, eh?
It's just how it is.
Depressing.
But I still think that's kind of true. Like 215, that needs to hold, and if it's trading below it, that's kind of cursed. And it really, really needs to make a new high. Right, because so
281 on the daily, that seems like a triple tap range high type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Like so far we have like lower highs, and that is steadily for memes, right? But yeah, it's kind of putting in a nice daily. If Bitcoin stays up, that's probably going to perform quite well. It's basically the same on all meme coins. Really, they all look the same. I like Pepe better than Bonk. But it's pretty much the exact same chart. Like you go on Pepe and you draw the range low, same kind of level. It's just 656 or something. If my eyes don't deceive me, it also held. It also bounced. It's also technically in a downtrend. It doesn't look as weak as Bonk does to me because it kind of like made equal highs at least. Bonk just kind of started like doing lower and lower ones, but it's pretty much the same thing. It's just basically whichever you like better, you can pick. I like Pepe better because it's on ETH, not on Sol. But that's pretty much my only reason.
I saw someone tweet at you saying, "I enjoy Technical Roundup, but Don calling Sol a meme chain and ETH a real chain is like a sign of how much upside there is left in Solana or something."
Oh, it's great! It's great. I love it.
So when are you going to apologize, Don?
Oh, I mean, I won't.
You won't. Understood. Yeah, I mean, Pepe, Bonk, basically same setups, right? Called the level, both made trillions of dollars. We're retiring this show, and then ourselves and 10 generations to come, as expected. Yeah. That would really be the optimal way to make this kind of content. Like, look, we called this level, and even have like a nice bit edited in where we call out the level and then the chart afterwards. You know, some fake P&L card.
Oh yeah, it'd be quite easy to do. We should really suck at this. Like
we're not
cynical enough. We talked about the level. We talked about entry criteria. We talked about everything. Could milk the clout out of it, but instead we're just just saying how shit we are at this.
Twiddling our
Which,
fucking thumbs, mate. Well, maybe at least one audience member made some money from
oh, dude,
the
everyone's
levels.
getting rich off of these. It's cool. I like it. Last Wednesday, I had someone in my stream. He was like, "Hey, Don, I'm out partying. I've just made 100K on the short side on Bitcoin breaking down. Already closed it. Let's fucking go. Thank you very much." And I'm like, "Cool, happy for you, bro." But actually, I am quite happy for him. Like, this is quite nice to see when people
Did you
make
send
money.
him a tip address?
I actually didn't. Hopefully, I didn't forget his name.
I was gonna say,
Go collect after.
Go collect, yeah, your winnings. So Bonk Pepe, best performers for the day, at least in my watch list, and in general, they're pretty high up there. That's a pretty strong reaction. Failed breakdown setup worked out. At this point, it's sort of pushing up against resistance. Chasing it is always tricky. This enters the tier of questions that you absolutely hate, where you've called a trade and it's sort of moved from the entry quite a lot, and people ignored the actual level that you thought was the most tradable, and then they come to you when it's arguably least tradable, at least in a low time frame setting, and they're like, okay, what do I do now? It's like, well, I don't know, because I'm not in your position, It's like the whole reason I was calling out that level is because I didn't want to end up in your position, as in where it bounces, and then you think, do I chase this? Is it resistance? Do I wait for BTC? It's like you're either getting a good entry or you do fuck all, realistically. But Bonk and Pepe, top of that list.
Yeah, if you're really bullish this, and if you really think that Bitcoin is just gonna kind of go sideways and then start walking back up, I still think you can trade these memes.
What do you do? Do you just breakout buy and a stop at the low?
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you're basically buying into resistance. Like, for example, if you have Pepe open right now, right? Like, it's the first test. It's the third test of that resistance. Like, at some point, that's gonna break. Whether if it keeps testing like this anyway. So if you're really bullish on this, you can just basically buy into that resistance, have a stop loss at the lows, and just hope that you don't get fucked. It's not my preferred way of trading. I wouldn't want to do it, because at the end of the day, what that forces you to do is sell the range low if you're too early. So you cannot only be wrong if you're wrong, but also if you're too early, right? So I prefer buying when I just have to be wrong to get stopped out. In this case, I would be stopped out by being too early or being wrong by both of them. But that's somewhat of an okay trade, I think, depending on your view of the rest of the market. Like I said, I wouldn't take it, but I don't think it's the worst setup. Like, I wouldn't necessarily shit talk anyone if they bought, especially if they bought the level that we talked about,
right?
To keep holding it into resistance right now.
Oh, sure.
Because I think that's totally valid.
Yeah, and there's always a trade-off, right? Like, if you're going to wait for confirmation, you can't expect the best entry, and vice versa.
Yeah,
something to be aware of. So good developments on those. Let's go to a slightly weaker meme coin, but one that I presumably didn't fill your bids. Dogecoin. It's back at a daily range low, so at least there's that extremity, and it ended up spiking the sort of March lows in doing so. Didn't quite get to the retesting the sort of what was it, 10 cents you were mentioning, 10, 11 cents.
10 was the dream. It almost got there.
10 was the dream. Now that the dream, well, you didn't get the dream on the dip, and we have some spiky price action going on. You have a position in this, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I have a tiny position.
Did you manage to add any, or are you looking to add any?
No, I was looking to add it 0.1 and 0.11. I was like, I'm going to front run these suckers that are trying to front run me. But that didn't happen.
SFP traders win again, Don. You're in disbelief.
Yeah, it's just how it is. No, I'm just gonna chase this up. So if people manage to push it above 0.15 ish,
1.5, okay.
Because that's basically where my first entry is, right? So I bought 0.15. The market went up, but I didn't really have a big position. So I was really quite ambivalent about it. I was like, oh yeah, percentage wise it's quite nice, but it's not a big position. Now it's all the way back down. If it manages to get back where I bought it first, I might just add a bunch. Otherwise I'll hope that I get another dip towards 0.11 or something like that. Now that I've said it, I'm gonna get front run.
At least you have the benefit of your average entry being around the decent technical level, so it's not completely arbitrary. It's like the last little bounce before the breakdown
Yep.
is 1.5. So it's not just a case of trading around your break even, but there is some, you can sleep at
Yeah,
night
yeah.
given
I'm
there's
not
some
saying
technical
because
structure there.
yeah, I'm not saying like, hey, I bought this, I'm underwater, I'm gonna buy more when it's back to my entry when I'm in the green. Like now I have more margin to
Yeah,
enter
yeah,
the
yeah,
position.
exactly. I've
No, no.
stayed off my liquidation.
I think like 0.1475.
Yeah, that's what I
That
had as well. Yeah.
basically above there it starts looking quite good.
Nice.
Below there it doesn't really. But if you go on the monthly time frame, and
Of
I know,
course,
I
what
know,
everyone does on Dogecoin. Yeah.
it is at a quite nice level, I think.
Oh, that's nice actually.
Yeah, I was actually like, even though I was in a position at 0. Like when before the crash happened, someone came into my chat on a Wednesday stream and he was like, Doge was trading at 0.22, I think even, and he was like, Don, I'm FOMO buying this, and I was like, don't be an idiot. Like look to the left, like this basically the only resistance that you have high time frame. That whole consolidation, all of those candle bodies are basically in that like 0.2 to 0.28 range, right? That's the resistance. And I was like, don't be an idiot. Don't like, that's just silly. Now I think the opposite is true, right? I think there's a chance that it puts in a wick this month. And I mean, there's a chance that this just goes to zero. It's a fucking meme coin. But just technically, I like it at that previous high that we had on the 1st of October 2022. It's back to that level. If it puts in a wick this month, fair enough. I think that's completely fine as long as it closes above where we currently are. Doesn't look that bad to me. And the same is true
Sorry, go on.
on Doge BTC. It's also at a really nice level.
On the monthly?
On the monthly, yeah. It's pretty much exactly the same. I talked about these when I was talking about the pullback to 0.1. I was like, maybe it wicks below these towards 0.1. So far it hasn't. It might still, but I like both of those. Basically, yeah. So Doge, not that bad. Obviously, heavily underperforming the newer memes, which yeah, it's a little bit to be expected, to be honest.
Even Floki's doing better, Don. Are you sure you've got the right dog?
All the other dogs need to be put down, I think. But,
understandable. Yeah. No, it's nice. I think those are pretty good monthly levels, especially for altcoins. The next one on the list is Near. That was another one that had a daily time frame reclaim type of structure, and this is much weaker today. It's actually down for the day, which is rare in altcoins, but from a technical perspective it's pretty much exactly where you'd need it to hold, unless it looks like a total scam. It's at that 590 620 type of area, and yeah, so I mean, underperforming, but proximity to invalidation is better than some of the other stuff. Is this interesting at all, or is the fact that it's basically break even for the day disqualifying as far as expressing bullish views using this instrument?
It's so annoying, right? When you have like something, you're like, oh, it's at support, and everything else bounced from this exact support. So like, is this a good buy or not? And you kind of go, and I'm kind of like in the camp where it's like everything, like Pepe bounced, Whiff bounced, everything bounced that had the exact same chart. This didn't, so it makes it less attractive. So I think it's less attractive than those other coins. But it's technically the same setup and hasn't played out. So I think this would be one if someone on Twitter goes hard enough on chilling this, basically showing the comparison between that and Whiff or whatever.
Yeah.
That would probably just go up.
Well, Don, you know what to do.
No, thanks.
I mean, look at this 1 hour range,
Yeah,
that is
it's not too bad.
That is very, I've made 50 R's scalping it.
Yeah, I'm not a hater like that. Generally, like in comparison to a lot of other altcoins, also on the Bitcoin chart, like that's not bad. Like if you go on near BTC, that's been consistently moving up since end-ish 2023, and that is something that you cannot say about a lot of other things.
Yeah. So now look, if Near breaks down, we'll just clip the part where it's like, I don't like it because it's weaker. But then if Near goes up, we clip the part where it's the same setup, just early.
Yeah, we should stop talking about what we're gonna do and actually start doing it.
And just start doing it. Listen, I'm more of an ideas guy, okay?
Yeah. I mean, me's the same. That's why nothing gets done on this channel.
That's why the newsletter's been AFK for like 6 months while we quote unquote work on it. I never fucking talk about it, but you know that's
exactly.
a domestic dispute for another day. Leave a like on this video if we should bring the newsletter back in one form or another.
Oh yeah, 10,000 likes and it's coming back.
Yeah, it's coming back tomorrow. Solana. So I mean, Solana ecosystem has actually had some pretty good performance across the day. Like Jupiter is up 7%. Jito is somewhere. I think it was on my watch list. I don't know why it disappeared. That's up quite a bit today as well. I think those are all, and Bonk obviously, Whiff as well. So the Solana bid is still alive. I'm wondering what you think of this technical structure. It's a bit like messy on the weekly, I think. It closed just above the 135 level, and then we had a very deep wick through previous week's low, but it's still holding. Like it's trading at 140 now, and on a weekly closing basis, you can't currently make the argument that weekly support is broken and that big inflection point is broken. If anything, it's holding, just with a lot of fucking pain in between. The daily time frame cluster, I think we've discussed this before, or talked about it somewhere, between that 135 weekly level and the bottom of that cluster at 125, that's been holding. And if you just delete all the levels, it's more or less been Spike City on Solana, right? Just like breakdown attempts, but it's sort of been bouncing from that point. What do you make of this?
I think
chart?
as long as the weekly 135 level holds, it's actually not bad. Like in comparison to pretty much everything else in the market that we have, it's just a decent looking chart. Like it's a strong uptrend. It almost made a new all-time high and then got swatted down. So like if you're a Solana believer, I think that's a decent level to look at it. If that fails, you're gonna be shit out of luck and it's gonna like half basically, I think. But then you can still get out, right? Like you get a close below 135. I think that's a good exit signal. So it's not that bad. I like it better than like 99% of the altcoin landscape out there at this level. It's at Sol BTC and Sol USD weekly support. Everything is kind of hanging around support right now, right? Like we talk about Doge, that's at support, and Solana's at support. ETH BTC even, we didn't talk about that one, but that's somewhat at support. So on the altcoin landscape, like I get why people are rushing back in. It is a little bit like it is a requirement that Bitcoin doesn't fully disappear for these to play out. Otherwise, it gets ugly really fast because when you have everything at support, right? And Bitcoin breaks down, that just leads to a full-on domino effect where people get liquidated on one coin and that liquidates the other position on another coin and all that kind of shit. So yeah, that's why I said it's a high-stakes bet, because you're putting your back against the wall and you're like, this has to work, and then you bet on it, and it could work. If it's a strong bull market, it probably does. If it's not, it won't, and then you're screwed. But yeah,
classic trading wisdom from Technical Roundup. If you bet and you're wrong, you'll lose money.
Oh yeah. No, but I think this is a really like the good part about these kind of levels is that at least you're gonna know when it's gone wrong, you know, because there's some levels where you buy and you're like it fails and you're like, was this level actually like important? Is this actually like a breakdown, or is it not? I think with these kind of levels that we have on all of these, you will know. So at least you're not going to be stuck in your position for too long if you're wrong.
Yeah, that's very true. There's nothing more frustrating than ending up trading at a level that ultimately means fuck all. Do you know what I mean? Like you get stopped out and you're like, okay, this, I bet on the best support level ever and it's broken. So now this shit's going to collapse. And then look, if it breaks down and then, stops you out and then reverses, at least you can sleep at night being like, oh, well, at least I bet on an important level. It's just my execution was wrong or my stop was too tight or whatever else. But there's nothing worse than getting like stopped out and then fuck all happens.
Oh yeah.
It's like, well, why did I bother doing business here? Clearly my trade sort of selection was bad. So I think quick resolution is generally a good thing to aim towards, because it means that you're doing business in areas that actually matter, Whereas if you, and that's something useful for traders who are have a trading journal, review that type of thing. Just look at what the market looks like after you get stopped out. Because if the answer is like some volatile thing, at least you're doing areas in the right business, you're in the right neighborhood, and there are other things for you to refine. But if you get stopped out and then fuck all happens, the market keeps chopping and it's completely ambivalent towards your exit or your stop or whatever else, and it does nothing, then I think that's kind of worth reviewing. It's some sort of information at the very least.
Yeah.
What else we got? We can talk about ETH actually. The 2K, 3K, 4K meme is kind of hanging on by a thread, I think.
Oh, yeah.
The weekly looks worse than Solana, I think. If you take the most generous weekly level at 30.59, at least on Binance Weekly, we closed above it last week, and then this week is currently trading below, whereas Solana is trading above. What I think is the saving grace for ETH is actually the daily cluster that we discussed. That's still in play, at least from a the bottom boundary extremity point of view, and similar to Solana, at least on the daily time frame. ETH has been spike city, right? So if you look at yesterday's price action, that just cleared out a bunch of lows, and we're bouncing today. You are obviously a huge fan of when the market keeps spiking the same lows over and over today, or over and over in general. So how do you sort of rate this as far as, okay, it's at an extremity of support versus it just keeps wicking and you're not generally a fan of that type of stuff? How do you reconcile those two things?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of doesn't... I agree with you that it looks worse than Solana.
Right.
And I also really don't like how like it keeps on spiking low. And then moves up a little bit and does it again and again and again. And I think generally, like the two coins that will give you the most information about the market is still Bitcoin and ETH. So if you get weak price action on both of these, it's a little bit scary, right? Especially if you get weak price action on both of these big, ginormous coins, and then you get strong price action on the memes. That just basically means like you have like the important things are getting sold off, and the shitters that can go up, as long as people are willing to take risk, go up. Just means like you have a bunch of risks basically, but no one bigger is willing to stick their neck out to actually buy something bigger. So it's a little bit scary with these wicks going over and over and over in the same area. And like I said, Bitcoin and ETH showing a little bit of weakness on the USD pairs. I don't hate, like, to be fully honest, I don't hate ETH BTC too much, but the ETH USD chart is a little bit scary.
What's changed your mind about ETH BTC, by the way?
I mean, it's not really like my mind hasn't really been changed. Like I still think this is clearly a downtrend, still weak, but it has reclaimed the low, the first January low.
Sure.
And the longer the ETH BTC bearishness goes on, the more likely I'm gonna be bullish on this.
What about your monthly doom call for this thing?
Oh, I mean, the monthly still looks complete and utter shit. I still think, like generally downside is more favored than upside. It's just at some point, like it's gonna be really, really hard to maintain that view for me, because I think the possible returns on ETH are substantial, as long as you finally get people to stop looking at this thing so intensely, right? Like, did you see like when we had that one green day on the 27th of April, like what was going on Twitter? Like, what the fuck? Like, this thing has underperformed the entire market, 90% of the altcoins on top during the entire bull run. And during the down cycle, not really. Like, I mean, it was better than the rest, right? And this is something that we've talked about quite a bit, that during like down moves, ETH is going to be generally like better than the rest, but that's not really helping you, right? Because you're still losing money if you're sitting in ETH. But even there, it wasn't really that much better. So like I want that to stop. I want people to look somewhere else, for the ETH trade to become a little bit more palatable. But I think the longer this goes on, the more interesting it becomes. And I think like this reclaim might not be the one that puts in the low, but I like at these kind of setups, whenever they happen, I want to look a little bit closer and not be too bearish. Like just be like, oh, the low got reclaimed, but it's a fake like every single other time. I'm gonna look at it and I'm gonna be like, okay, what's the next resistance? And for me, that's 0.053, 0.054. And if we close above there, I might actually just be like, okay, I'm gonna chance it and see if I can like see if this is where it turns around or not. So that's quite close. But still, for ETH, that's a tall ask. Like going up 6% against Bitcoin, tall ask for ETH, which is really
Had a
sad.
green
Sad state.
week though. That's unreal.
Oh yeah,
It's been a while.
yeah, but it's been like this the entire way down. If you look at it, like one bigger green week, and then like just continues bleed out over the following weeks.
Yeah.
So if this turns around and we actually like this week closes somewhere right around where it's right now, or like even a little bit higher, and the next week plays out favorably for ETH, I'd be down to maybe look at it.
2 green weeks in a row. You're so greedy, Don. I swear.
Oh yeah, yeah. But then I'm down to look at it a little bit more in depth, and that's why I don't want to be too bearish on it, just because I think there is potential. But you also don't want to be too bullish, because I mean you see what happens if you're too bullish.
Right. So if ETH is up slightly, the argument is weekly reclaim, it's taking a while, and the longer it lasts, the more bullish I am. And if ETH BTC looks like shit, it's monthly time frame FUD, it's fucking over. This underperforming piece of shit needs to go to Hades. Have I got that right?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I mean, we just ignore, like, I'm just ignoring the monthly right now, because I'm like, I want to see this go up.
Okay, perfect.
But the moment I don't want to see this thing go up anymore, I'll just look at the monthly and be like,
yeah,
I mean, thing is doomed.
Perfect process, you know, beauty's in the eye of the beholder or whatever.
Yes.
Whiff.
Oh yeah. We're going down the shitter list, huh?
I mean, after this, it's wormhole. So
okay.
I mean, this
even
thing
worse, huh?
yeah, apparently. This thing did not break down whatsoever, right? No. So if you wanted to meme the kind of relative strength thing of showing BTC breaking its range low and coins that haven't, this stands out in that cohort, right? So Bonk, Pepe, etc. They reclaimed and kind of went up. Whiff didn't even sort of break down in the first place. What do you make of this? Is it still the same technical argument of back above 320? That looks good. And in general, what do you think this relative strength is indicating?
I mean, I think Whiff looks much worse than Pepe and Bonk. Just generally, that still like, because Pepe and Bonk basically, like, at least Pepe and I think Bonk looks similar enough to make the same argument. Kind of have gotten back to the point where they broke down, right? Whiff hasn't, and Whiff is still, like, you look at that chart and it's still an aggressive downtrend, and everything else is kind of turning around to, like, Pepe is turning around, like, everything in that basket of meme coins did like massive strides today. Whiff is just kind of being pulled along, it looks like to me. But yeah, above 3.2. I'm down to make the argument for Whiff. We fudded it at 4 on this show, and it broke down. And we have had the range, like the 2.2 to 3.2 range, and we've discussed it, and that's been absolutely perfect. So it's been a really good coin to trade, just because the TA has been really nice. But I think just on like a relative strength basis, this looks much worse than the other meme coins.
Well, yeah, returns wise, and also just from a purely TA point of view, it doesn't have the same kind of bullish impulse, if that makes sense, as Bonk and Pepe, which have either reclaims or market structure shifts or whatever else, whereas this thing is more sideways. But yeah, I mean, shit's holding up. You know, I was honestly expecting, if 60K were to break, to A, see a bigger move, and B, see alts break down as well. But that actually hasn't transpired at the moment. So either it won't transpire, and this is just like some high time frame monthly bearish retest. That's kind of the tail case, but sorry, bullish retest. Fucking Freudian slip right there. That is something I'm keeping in the back of my head, because I remember trading the 10.7K monthly retest in September of 2020 really fucking poorly, and sort of catching on to that much later than I should have. And I kind of took the sentiment bait during that monthly retest at 10.7. Just literally remember that like it was fucking yesterday. So I'm trying to keep that in the back of my mind, that yes, the daily range broke down and the weekly is just like wick after wick and looks a bit shitty. But I didn't want to ignore the monthly if it's going to come in and bail this thing out, right? Yeah. That's just something I'm bearing in mind for higher time frame directional bias, that yes, all this stuff is on slightly slower timeframes, slightly faster timeframes, looks a bit shitty and perilous, and it should reclaim and all this other stuff. But like fudding into what could turn into a monthly bullish retest, I kind of don't want to. At the very least, I don't want to react too late if it ends up playing out that way.
Yeah, I think that's very valid, especially given how, like, when you look at Bitcoin, like how it is. We had a daily breakdown,
Yeah.
and that range is quite bearish, quite obvious to see for everyone. But if you, the moment you zoom out, you basically win an area of weekly support, right, on Bitcoin, like at 60K.
Yes.
Like if we close above 60K, everything looks really fucking good, and that's just 1K away. And then on the monthly time frame, it's pretty much the same deal. That's pretty much what you were talking about. We're at or in support.
Yeah.
And so you basically have everyone that's glued to the low time frames look at this and be like, it's over. And then you have the high time frame guys that generally move more size and are more important to the market, that are like, I mean, this is at support. Maybe they punt, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's very valid, just because you don't want to get caught with your pants down. That said, the big advantage that small traders have, right, and this is just like a little bit of a excursion on the Bitcoin front, but the big advantage that they have is that you really don't, like, for you it doesn't really matter. Like liquidity constraints, especially on Bitcoin, is not a thing. So for these big guys that trade the monthly time frame, the weekly time frame, and for example, if you look at the Bitfinex positioning right now, you see a bunch of like longs going quite ham, even before the range broke down. Like if you move quite a bit of size, you actually have to take trades where you stick your neck out quite a bit. As the low time frame guy, you can just coast on whatever the fuck they're doing. Like for example, like if you reclaim 62K and you want to get a position, you're gonna get a position, right? Like you can buy without moving the market too much, and you don't really have a problem getting into the market, which is a big bonus, I think. Same is true for a lot of altcoins, right? When you have these kind of reclaim setups where you don't have to buy the actual low, it's just when you actually get nice confirmation, you can jump in, and you don't have to be too worried that you're gonna be kind of slipping the market or having trouble, like to get your size in that you want. All that kind of stuff is very different for these very big traders. So that's why I'm saying, like, the daily looks bearish, the weekly and the monthly are at support. But the cool thing is that you can just jump in when daily actually turns bullish with the weekly and the monthly time frame. And the bigger positional traders, they cannot really do that. They have to actually bet and put their balls on the line, which can work, doesn't have to. I think there's a little bit more, like, it's easier to sleep when you can just play off of their momentum, so to speak.
Listen, you're not allowed to say that there's a nice middle ground solution where you incorporate the faster moving lower time frame signals into your high time frame analysis. What you're supposed to do is bifurcate the issue, set up a false dichotomy, and say that it's the high time frame 60k support chads versus the low time frame range breakdown virgins, and just pick a side, basically.
Yeah, but like it is kind of like that. The problem is, like, if the high time frame chats are wrong, right, they have to unwind these positions too, and they get the same problem to the downside, where it's like, they're like, oh shit, we're actually wrong, and then you need to get out of a position where they're like massively wrong. It's actually really shit. Like if you've ever held like a like low liquidity small shit coin, and this is something that I used to recommend people to do, like just trade a really small coin where you have like quite a bit of market impact. Like a tiny coin can be very, very minuscule, and just see what that does to that market, right? When you're doing something dumb,
So
basically.
DonAlt advocates for pump and dump. Have I understood that correctly?
No. I'm just saying, like, you move into a market where you like, quote unquote, a whale, right? And then you can just kind of see like how that market behaves, and like basically learn how all of this works under the hood, right? And you will notice that if you're wrong, it gets really shit really fast. Like if you're right, cool, you make a little bit of money. If you're very right, you make a shitload of money. but if you're wrong, you lose a shitload of money very fast. And if you're very wrong, you're fucked. So like it's really interesting, I think, and something that I used to do quite a bit. Back in my older days, I would just like play around basically. And you can do a lot of like, you can do market making because, I mean, just doesn't really matter if you lose like a couple $100 if like that's what you're doing it with. Or you can do like you can punt a bunch and then slip the market upwards, see if that carries momentum or not.
Yeah, then
All
fucking
that kind of
arbit
stuff.
on another shitty exchange that's gonna hold
Yeah,
your funds
exactly.
hostage as soon as you put like 1K on there.
Yeah, but I think that teaches you so much.
Oh my god, yeah, it's the best way to learn about like microstructure, market impact, slippage, liquidity, all of that, like limit chase, all of that type of stuff. Order book depth, yeah, 100%.
And then once you've learned all of that, you kind of understand the market on a little bit of a different level.
Yes.
And then you at least get like some of the basics right. And
For sure.
yeah, all that to say, basically, you like, and us included, with a small fish, we can kind of take advantage of being the small fish. We don't have to trade like the big fish.
Yeah, not having not being constrained by liquidity is an edge in itself.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
That said, when I start pump and dumping low caps on Twitter, my defense is going to be, I'm just learning.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little bit of a difference.
I'm just brushing up on market microstructure, you know? Let's see how well that goes. The last one I've got on my list is WUSDT, which I believe is Wormhole. This is a purely technical sort of chart because it's on the cusp. It's sort of doing well today. First point, it's up like 7%. And the second is on the cusp of a daily / 4-hour breakout. And at least that's reasonably clean from almost a whiff-esque point of view, where you can kind of ignore everything else and say, well, at least the line make Boeing framework is sort of nice in this instance. What do you think of this one?
I mean, it's the best looking chart we've looked at today.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for playing.
No, I mean, this is basically like we have a massive shit week on Bitcoin, right? And that's bananaing upwards, right? And that's the technical term for it, like the professional technical term.
Yeah. From your CFT, CMT. You went to Japan to study candlestick patterns, didn't you?
Oh, of
Spent
course.
like 10 years in Hokkaido or whatever.
Yeah, as a child, my mom was like, he needs to learn the ancient art of reading candlesticks.
Learning Japanese was just a byproduct, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Don't ask me to say anything, though, because I only use it in serious
TA discussions.
Yes. No, I like it. I have... Honestly, it's the first time I looked at the wormhole chart, but I like it. It broke out.
Yeah.
It barely retested. Like the retest is like a shallow one, shallow enough, but it is a retest. It's very close to invalidation. It's a new coin, so I don't know how big the market cap of this thing is, like how much room there is to grow, but I think there is quite a bit. I like it.
Well, then buy some, you pussy. I'm watching the 1 minute right now. Where's the market impact you were so confidently discussing a minute ago?
I wasn't talking about my own. But yeah, I might actually. I like it. It's a cool looking chart. Like there's an invalidation at like 0.6, maybe even a little bit higher. Like if you fine tune it a little bit. And like it's a new coin, right?
In one form or another.
Yeah, exactly. And basically there's a lot of room just because it's a new coin, right? Like the new coins, they can have price discovery, or like if they break down, there's very, very, like there's no floor, there's no ceiling.
There's also price discovery.
Yeah. And I think this one just basically, given how close invalidation is, and I think, where is it? Like I'm just looking it up on CoinMarketCap, but
you mean CoinGecko?
CoinGecko, of course. Yeah, I mean CoinMarketCap. No one should really be using it. I'm just so boomer that like I'm just like too lazy to change my ways.
So you're gonna log on to Bittrex to buy some.
Oh yeah, I mean, like it's quite big, but it seems good. Seems good. I like it.
There you go. I've managed to shield on a new coin that he's bullish on. Never tell me this show has no value. I can do the fucking impossible, apparently. Getting this man to update his watch list and look at new coins, I mean,
Oh yeah,
Honestly,
I mean
I'm a fucking magician.
that's a big task, and but yeah, no, the reason why I like it is because there's a closing validation, because technically it's obviously a downtrend, but yeah,
You know what else has
closing
a close
validation.
validation?
What?
Near.
Yeah, but that one has, I mean, that one has a little bit more baggage.
Yeah,
Let's
and
say
it's
it
not
that
up
way.
8% today.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Well,
That's the watch list. That's the altcoin landscape, Don. Now that BTC is up 2%, any summary notes, revisions, conclusions, tips, tricks, hacks,
no, I think
LARPs?
that. No, I mean, I I think at the end of the day, it's gonna depend on Bitcoin. But I've seen, and this has been quite interesting because a lot of people were making fun of me for like fudding the range low. Like I was literally getting tagged every single day when it wasn't breaking down. Like, ha, you're such an idiot. It's going up now. And then it kept bouncing from the same level over and over again, and people were very fucking loud. And then the moment it broke down, the sentiment shifted very fast from, oh, everyone that's not buying the support, intergalactical support, is an idiot, to, oh yeah, it's over. So like that sentiment shift, if we reclaim the range, I think that's gonna stick around for a while. So I think at that point you're gonna have a little bit of a nice move on Bitcoin. Uh, but yeah, if it cannot, obviously bearish. So that's the line in the sand, and then you can just make your altcoin plays based around where you think Bitcoin is going, or wait for Bitcoin to show where it's gonna go by reclaiming 62K and then just slamming the altcoins. Could also work.
Fantastic. I'm going to leave you to go buy all the wormhole that's available on the market. I heard OTC desks only have 40 BTC worth left. So go get what you can. Before you click off this video, please leave a like on it. It helps us a lot. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're almost at BTC parity. Let's hope we resolve it by going up as opposed to BTC going down. Made that joke a bunch of times, but it's not fucking working. So maybe just click that button and it would help. We'll be back tomorrow on Casual Friday for more maybe up, maybe down, wait for the monthly close, see you in 4 weeks type of analysis. And thank you to Woo for supporting the show. They've been very good with listings as well recently. And there's some fun sort of product highlight features that'll be coming on this channel, ideally in a way that'll be fun and interactive for you as well. So stay tuned for those. That's all from us. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.